my business is it's not an easy business, but it's a simple business. It's databasing, it's cold calling, it's doing proposals, it's getting listings, and it's closing deals. Most people focus on the cold calling. Hey, I did 250 cold calls this week. I did 300 cold calls. I did 8 million cold calls. And me, I don't really care how many cold calls you made. I want to know how many properties you listed. And I don't really even care how many properties you listed. I want to know how many transactions that you've closed.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. We're back again today with our guest, Dan Lewkowicz, and we're going to dive in actually back into the economy a little bit of some things that we didn't talk about in the past segment 2 days ago. But we actually took a turn that I didn't expect, where Dan dives into something that's been important to him, that's helped him perform at a high level. And I love diving into things like this, where you don't typically hear these things during an interview. But we started talking about it, and I love learning some of these tips that he laid out that's important to him so he can perform at the level he does. I'm thankful to welcome back Dan again for another segment. Dan, glad to have you. Grateful for your time.
My pleasure. Happy to be here again.
Well, I know that many people listened to the first segment we did together and were thinking about the state of the economy. We talked about it a little bit. You had mentioned maybe diving in a little bit deeper into a few things, which I'm all for because I get questions about this all the time. Would love to hear more thoughts about that, and just even challenges, right, in commercial real estate right now, are things we should know. Is it time to run away? Is it not, right? And because people are wondering, right? A lot of investors, active and passive, are wondering some of those things. So let's dive in a little deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that right now what's going on is there is a lot of fear in the marketplace. And as we know, fear drives market inefficiencies. Whenever there's a market inefficiency, there's opportunity, right? So there are fear-based sellers. And when there's fear-based sellers, there's going to be opportunistic buyers. So that's just one component of what's going on. But in terms of like the overall health and state of commercial real estate and the economy, I firmly believe that we're on strong footing. I mean, these main corners that the properties that I typically deal with are located, they're not going anywhere, right? People are still spending money. People are still, eating hamburgers and pumping gas and getting their prescriptions filled. That's never going to change, right? Things might be altered a little bit, but in general, because these are fundamentally necessary parts of just like the average American day-to-day life, they're going to continue to be necessary and continue to be valuable. And that's what I love about net lease, is it's just such necessity-based retail in many cases. So I think that overall the commercial market is very strong. I think that once we get past, again, like we talked about on a previous episode, maybe this one more interest rate hike, if that's what there is, I think that the market is really going to level out and then I think take off. Because I think there's a lot of pent-up demand. I mean, I'm on the phone every day with large institutions that are telling me, Dan, that we have hundreds of millions of dollars to deploy. Help us find deals. And I think there's a lot of capital right now. That's also very important to notice. The banks are well capitalized and the investors are well capitalized. Now, what we talked about before is there is going to be a cascade of individuals whose debt comes due. But again, that's just going to be like kind of like a tranche of the real estate market that's going to get sloughed off and then picked up by opportunistic buyers and put back into circulation, so to speak. So I think that overall we're doing great. I just want to express to people that if you're concerned that you either A, missed your opportunity because values are so high, or B, should run away from commercial real estate because it's too volatile. I mean, real estate goes up. That's just a fact. Yeah, it does go down. But if you look at it over the last 50, 60, 100 years, the values of real estate, even adjusted for inflation, go up significantly. And if you want to talk about volatility, I mean, look at the equities market, right? The equity, it took 4 weeks. I just looked this up because we were talking about it before. It took 4 weeks for the Dow to go from like 29,000 to sub 20,000, right? To just a third of the value chopped off. Find me any net lease deal that in 4 weeks loses 30+% of its value. You can't find it. It doesn't exist, right? So the underlying stability and security of our market and of the assets that we deal in, it is very, very strong. So we'll see what's going to happen. There might be a correction, but I believe that over time these values will continue to go up. And I bbelieve that ultimately real estate is an incredible vehicle both for wealth preservation and wealth creation.
No doubt about it. It blows my mind, the folks who, I was talking to a potential investor not too long ago who's no real estate experience whatsoever, always invested in the stock market. And his immediate response was, I just feel like real estate is kind of a secondary thing, compared to the stock market. I'm like, wait a minute,
We're not taught about it, right? The 401ks don't discuss, self-directed options. No employer is like, oh, by the way, you could take your money and invest in real estate. No, it's just not. It's already a level to be educated in the stock market, which most people are not. But then real estate, I mean, it should be open to everyone, especially today. I mean, look at the
Right.
look at your podcast. You have over 1,700 episodes, right? That's
Right.
education that's available to anyone who has internet access, which in today's day and age is pretty much everybody. So yeah, real estate is accessible to everyone, and it should be. It's a great way to be able to advance yourself and to increase your family's security and safety and net worth without having an education.
I've asked any operators that we have on the show. I'll always ask, how they're prepared for a potential downturn, right? And I love the vision you're painting, right? That how strong real estate is and how it's always been strong. Yes, there's ups and downs, no doubt about it, but ultimately it is where majority of wealth has been created, for people.
Yep.
And preservation, like you mentioned. I love the thought of that, right? The preservation of wealth, when you can put your wealth in a piece of real estate, and it cash flow, right? Or it hold and grow for you and your family for many years to come. But I wonder, Dan, from the operators that you work with, what are a few characteristics, of say your top operators who are, say, prepared for a downturn, right? They're ready for that dip, right? In any market cycle, because of maybe one or two things or a dozen things, whatever it may be, that you've seen, they stand out because maybe they underwrite this way or they have this kind of reserves or whatever it may be.
So just to clarify, are you referring to like an operator of a fast food chain, like that is the actual business operator? Or are you talking about an investor that owns the properties, or someone that does both?
Yeah, I was thinking more like the person that owns the property,
Okay,
the real estate investor himself.
sure. Yeah. So one of the things that I've seen is just like a very conservative approach to making sure that properties are not over leveraged, right? I think that's very, very important because the guy or gal who, as we've talked about this at least 3 or 4 times so far, right? The guy or gal who got that property at a 5 cap, but got the debt at 3%. If they got a 75 or a 70% loan to value, and now interest rates are much higher, now they have to refinance, they're in trouble. But if they took out a 60 or a 55% loan to value, they're probably going to have not probably, they will have a much larger cushion. So I would say that I've seen, just kind of a conservative approach to over leveraging properties, which makes a lot of sense. And then I've just seen conservative underwriting. When they're buying things, that they're just doing a conservative underwriting, which is so important. I remember in my early days of investing, I get my spreadsheet out, and I was like, you know, whatever exit could be, whatever the best case exit in every single scenario could be, that was in my spreadsheet, right? Because that's what's going to happen. Well, it's not going to be anything but the best. And it took me, this was years ago, but it took me a while to realize that the best case is the best case because there's so many other cases that could happen, right? This is just one of them. So, I've learned over the years to take the more conservative approach. If I'm underwriting an exit on a Starbucks and I think it's going to trade at a 5.5 or a 5.75, I'm going to underwrite it as 6 cap because that extra, 25 basis points is not going to hurt me. And if it sells at a 5.5, cap or a 5.75 cap, great. It's gravy. But I'm not in a position where I've underwritten for X and now I'm selling for something that's not, that's less than X. So I think that's, a secondary component that's very, very important. And then I would just say, like, I've watched them, again, heads down mentality. They focus on their business plan and their business model. And a lot of these guys, like if they're, for example, if somebody's an operator of fast food, a lot of them, they focus on operating fast food. Somebody's in, is an owner of real estate, they focus on owning real estate. What I've also noticed, there's one guy in mind, he jumps out at me right now. He's an operator of Wendy's restaurants, real good operator. I've done some sale leasebacks for him. Just as a quick aside, a sale leaseback is when you've got an owner and an operator of the same property. The person that owns the property operates the property. So in this case, the landlord is the tenant in a sense. So what they can do is they can sell the property and lease back the actual, the operation is leasing back space in the property. So what that does is that helps them free up capital. It now allows them to write off their rental payments. And also, when compared to doing just doing like a cash out refinance, they're able to take 100% of the equity out of the building, albeit they will be giving up ownership. But by doing the sale leaseback and they sell the building, they can actualize 100% of the equity. So anyway, this individual, I've helped him do some sale leasebacks for his Wendy's properties, and he's used the money to buy shopping centers. And as time went on, he's like, man, I like this. I like this commercial real estate investing thing. I like this brokerage thing. And he's actually getting out of the business, and he's like in his 60s. And he's actually going to come and, I believe, work with us as a broker because he loves brokering deals so much. So to me, it's just been interesting to watch his transition, from being an operator to being an investor to now wanting to be the broker. And the whole reason he wants to be the broker, he told me, is because the brokers see the best deals first. And he wants them. So just a little aside there, but I love talking to guys like that.
That's fun. That's fun. I wondered too, do your best investors, do they do numerous asset classes, or are they strictly, let's say even within triple net, are they like strictly Wendy's, or are they strictly some other type of, or fast food maybe in general,
Yeah.
or are they numerous things, or different asset
Most
classes?
of them are pretty, laser focused. I found that most successful people are laser focused. And by the way, you might see somebody that has a bunch of things they're doing and might say, oh, that's not a laser focused guy. But I can almost guarantee you that person was laser focused on one thing, did it really well, then started being laser focused on another thing, did it well, another thing, continue, repeat the process. Most of the people I see are laser focused on one thing. I've got a client who is he is a physician, and he decided, why do I want to be the physician? I want to be the guy that owns the actual surgical centers. So he started developing surgical centers for a large tenant and then having me sell them. And that's his laser focus. Now he is starting to branch into other tenants, but that's again because he's got a machine that works well for him, right? I've got other clients that are pharmacy only. That's all they do. I've got other clients that are quick service restaurant only. But then I've got clients that are like opportunistic only, right? So if they see a short-term lease, like their bucket is, I want something that's below market rent, short-term lease, right? So that's still pretty laser focused. It's a broad, different, number of asset types, but the actual criteria are pretty laser focused. So in general, yeah, I see people that are, laser focused, and myself as well. Like if I'm an investor in commercial real estate, I want to be laser focused because it's just going to make things easier.
What's your best advice for passive investors right now, Dan?
I would say it's education, and specifically working with a great broker who's going to help you to underwrite as many deals as you can. I would say that it's so important. I always tell people, whatever you're doing, like I look at if somebody's going to buy a house and you go up to that first house and you fall in love. Oh, this is the one. No, go see 10, 15, 20 more. And you'll see that there are certain things about that house that you don't like. So I tell people the same thing with underwriting. Underwrite as many deals as you can. That's like going to the gym. That's like lifting weights. The more times you underwrite a deal, the more you're going to spot something. And especially, net lease is pretty straightforward. We don't really work on pro formas, which I love. Multifamily has these nonsense pro formas, which I don't know how you can work with those. But my point is that the more you exercise those underwriting muscles, the more when there's something on that pro forma or in that underwriting that's there that shouldn't be there, it's going to jump out at you, right? And then, when you analyze and underwrite 100 more deals, there's other things that are going to jump out at you that wouldn't have prior. So I think that would be my best advice: is educate yourselves, underwrite, and stay true to your principles. There's a lot of opportunity right now because there is fear in the marketplace. If you stick to your principles, I think that it's important to say that you will be successful. You just have to continue to do that. And I can't understate the importance of working with a good broker to help you go through all those motions and do those processes.
What are some of the most important metrics that you track? Could be personally or professionally.
Well, it's interesting because in my business is it's not an easy business, but it's a simple business. It's databasing, it's cold calling, it's doing proposals, it's getting listings, and it's closing deals. Most people focus on the cold calling. Hey, I did 250 cold calls this week. I did 300 cold calls. I did 8 million cold calls. And me, I don't really care how many cold calls you made. I want to know how many properties you listed. And I don't really even care how many properties you listed. I want to know how many transactions that you've closed. So for me, for every year, I have 2 benchmarks. One of them is the number of closings, which really doesn't matter because, it's unbelievable the disparity between my biggest closing and my smallest closing of a year. Last year, my smallest closing was, I believe, 1.25 million. My biggest closing was 47.5 million, right? So I don't know why I keep this metric, but it just keeps me on track. So I have a metric of the number of closings, and then I have a metric of essentially my net commission. That's very, that is, to me, that is the last of all of those benchmarks. Database, cold call, list, proposal, listing, closing, net commission. So those are the metrics that I track. That to me is the most important. Thankfully I'm at a place where I kind of just I spend most of my time in escrow management, and pushing my deals through, which is my favorite part. And a lot of my business is repeat, business, which is much better than, in the beginning of my career when, everything was new business.
What are some habits you're disciplined about that have produced the highest return for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, but up there on the top would definitely be sleep. I'm just going to be
Yeah.
honest with you. Like, prioritizing my sleep and making that like a non-negotiable has changed my every single aspect of my life. It's changed my relationships. It's changed the way I feel. It's changed my health. That's very important. Diet is important. I am not the most disciplined about it. I'm usually very disciplined about it, but then I'm also very disciplined about like not being disciplined. So I have my on time and my off time, but in general, it's pretty good. So that's important. I am usually very disciplined about exercise. I do vinyasa yoga 5 to 6 times a week, which for me is, it gives me that push out of that, expending all that energy, and also that meditative relaxation part at the end. So that's huge. And then I would say, like, I've got man, like, I've got a friend. He's here right now. He lives in Texas, but he's here right now. He's staying with me tonight. I'm so excited. His name is Ben Kogut, and we're both Benjamin Kogut. We're both members of the Next Level Mastermind. And part of the Next Level Mastermind is each quarter you're supposed to get an accountability partner and switch off. We've been accountability partners for years. We just never switched off. We were like, this works. Every week we have an hour call where we keep each other accountable, and that has been huge. Ben is like a brother to me, and he's been a broker. He's a capital raiser, but he gets it, and it's easy in this life to not hold ourselves accountable. And I'm speaking for myself personally. And it's easy in this life to let myself off the hook, right? And to say, oh, really, I should make 50 calls today, but I'll make 25. It's okay. But when I got a guy who knows what I'm doing, right? And we're talking about it, I'm like, I'm going to make 25 calls. And he's like, no, you're going to make 50. And I do the same for him. That's been huge. I can't stress it enough. It's having those accountability partners and other people to check in with. I mean, I attribute a lot of my success to the fact that at a certain point in my life, I decided that I was going to have, a group of people that I'd be in constant consultation with. Some of them once a week, some once a month, some, less or more depending. But these are people that I talk to, and some of them are I'm going to spend time with one of my longest standing friends. He has nothing to do with real estate. We've done real estate deals together, like he's invested, but nothing to do with real estate. But we're going to talk about everything that's going on in my life. And even though we're friends, it's going to be a check-in, So for me, having that group of advisors those are friends and family members and accountability partners to keep me on track. I mean, I'm right here. I'm just Dan Lewkowicz. I'm one guy, but behind me is an army of other people that I'm constantly in contact with that are helping me to be who I am.
Love that. I would agree with all that. Having the team of people behind you that could say the same thing in so many ways. And I strive for and look for places to find accountability, like you're talking about, and people that are pushing forward and that will push me and I can push them. And it makes a major difference. I wanted to ask you quickly too. You said you're disciplined about sleep. I would say a couple of years ago, my wife and I got on a kick about just like learning more about sleep, right? And the importance of sleep. But do you have any tips for the listener and myself? Is that, man, we're strictly getting bed at this time every night and up by this time, or we do this ritual before bed, or I don't know, temperature, what are any tips that you may have about sleep?
Oh yeah, I've got a lot. So first of all, you want to keep there's a lot of aspects of routine when it falls into the topic of sleep. So first of all, I think it's important to get up at around the same time every day of the week. So if I get up at 7:30 during the week, I don't want to sleep until 11 or 12 on the weekends. I can't even do that. I mean, I wouldn't be able to, but don't do it. It might feel good, but it can throw you off. Go to bed at the same time, have a routine. Very important is I try to do no screen time for 1 to 2 hours before bed. It's hard. My wife likes to watch TV in bed. I don't, but that's part of relationship piece, keeping that compromise. But regardless, I actually have, it looks really dorky, and if she's watching this, she's gonna be laughing. But I have these blue light filtering glasses that I wear. You can get them for $10 on Amazon, I wear them a lot of times if I'm going to be exposed to blue light, because blue light will actually inhibit your brain's production of melatonin, which regulates your sleep. So I try to wear those at night, and or not have any screens an hour to 2 hours before bed. And for me, it's huge to not, like, I check my email. I'm guilty of checking my email all day long, even when I'm not in the office, all day long. So I make it very, after 9 o'clock at night, I don't check my email anymore, because there's going to be that one email that's like, oh man, wow, what about that deal? How do we do it this way? And then I'm up all night thinking about it, because that's just the way my brain works. I have shades. It's funny that we're talking about this, but it is very important, right? Because sleep is so crucial. I have just regular, pull down blinds that are light filtering, but those weren't enough. So I went to, the late great Bed Bath and Beyond, and got some like total blackout shades and put them on every window in my bedroom. So it is as dark as you could, ever want it to be. That's very important. Low temperature. I set my house to about 68 or 69 at night, so that keeps it really cool. If I think I'm gonna have a hard time sleeping, or if I feel that my body is too warm, I take a cold shower right before bed. That also helps. Another trick, if you can't fall asleep: hot shower, cold shower, hot shower, cold shower, alternate. That really, for whatever reason, will, for me at least, will put me right to sleep. And then I wear earplugs. I don't think, Whitney, that I could go to sleep today without earplugs, because I'm just used to it. But I have earplugs in, so I don't care if there's a bomb going off next door. God forbid, I'm not waking up. I think those are probably my best sleep tips. Again, routine, like, do the same routine. If you take your vitamins at night, you brush your teeth, you read your book, like, have that routine. That 30 to 45 minutes prior to hitting the pillow is very, very important. And then I think it's also important that the bed should not be used for things other than sleep and, whatever you're supposed to do in a bed. But, not to do work in your bed. Don't be on your phone, doing emails. Make your bed, and if possible, your whole bedroom, a place that's associated with sleep.
Love that, man. Many great tips, but it's things like that I love drawing out of people that are successful like yourself. That you just don't normally hear about, right? We all talk about the economy or real estate, but man, there's some things that help people to think better and perform, at a
Oh
higher
yeah,
level, and all these things that we don't get to talk about often enough. But I know for myself that, man, sleep affects me in such a big way. If I do not get a certain amount of sleep, or my morning routine is messed up in some way, or I go to bed much later than normal, my next day is just so affected by it,
totally.
right? I just cannot think as clearly. I just cannot perform as well. So many things. I just appreciate you diving into that and laying that out. I think, man, if the listeners would just do a few of those things that you mentioned, they're going to have a better night's sleep. And one other thing I would mention too is that there's this. I do not have one, but a good friend of mine has one of these things called a eight sleep, eight sleep. I think it's called. But
What's that?
it monitors the temperature of your bed. Like, you can set it on your phone, hot, cold, how hot or cold you want it. It can vibrate to wake you up, and not wake up the person next to you. It monitors your heart rate and all kinds of stuff like that. But they're quite
That's
expensive.
awesome.
But man, I thought, man, I get hot at night, and then I can't sleep. But so it's made me think about something like that.
Yeah, I will say there's one other thing. It's not directly related, but I feel like I want to mention it. Is that, it's funny, because I'm definitely a very different man than I was, years ago. But I'm a high energy, fast thinking, dynamic person. And I used to always think that because that was my nature, I had to be like doing so many different things and all over the place, and not having structure or routine. And if I want to go to bed at 3, I go to bed at 3. If I want to, work, I work. If I want to go here, I go there. Years ago, I decided that my life needed more structure and routine. And I realized that I'm still able to be myself. I'm still able to take that same energy and hustle and fast thinking capabilities, and just put it into whatever I'm doing. But I have my structure where this is the time I wake up. This is the time I eat lunch. This is the time that I'm doing this activity. And for me, it's been so beneficial to be able to be structured like that. And then it also gives me the intellectual freedom that when I shut off, I'm really shutting off. I don't feel that sense of guilt, because I feel like I've really, allocated my time wisely. So I guess I'm talking maybe to my younger self. If there's anybody out there listening, just because you have that energy and that creativity and fast thinking mind, which those are all huge assets that not everyone's blessed with, it doesn't mean that you can't find ways to be structured and disciplined to really, squeeze so much more juice out of yourself.
Dan, how do you like to give back?
I mean, I would say that my favorite way of giving back is just spending undivided quality time with my kids. I have 5 kids, one of whom is 10 months old. So my sleep has been a little bit, a little bit compromised, but that is what it is. But for me, that's the best way that I can give back is to shape the next generation by, having positive, formative experiences with my kids. I often think about, the fun things that we do together. For example, this summer went to the beach a lot, went to the wave pool, and like those memories are the memories that are going to shape who they are for the rest of their lives. Like I still have my memories from my childhood that shaped me and who I am today, and I'm in the driver's seat and I have that ability to do that. So I guess for me that's the biggest way of giving back. I also really enjoy giving back. I get a lot of people who reach out to me specifically on LinkedIn wanting to know about commercial real estate brokerage or commercial real estate investing, and I love talking to them and letting them pick my brain and hearing their situations. And even more so when they follow up with me in 6 months or a year and a half, telling me how it all worked out. For me, that's a great way of giving back too. And, I think that there's a lot of opportunities, and every single day I have a junior broker who I work with, who's, relatively new in the business, and, I'm helping to shape him and mold him into, who he wants to be. So I feel like I have a lot of opportunities to do that. I'd welcome more opportunities, but those are really the primary ways that I try to give back.
Dan, I'm grateful for how you've given back to us over 3 segments now, and man, you've provided so much just wisdom, experience that most do not have. That are probably listening, but in this space, we need somebody like yourself on our team that has that level of experience, wisdom, and I'm grateful for your time. And even in this segment, you'd over back into the economy a little bit, but I love time. I love segments too when it takes a different twist than we expected, or even diving into something like sleep and the importance of it and how important it is to you, and just laying out some of those tips. I think is helpful to all of us. But even having the importance of having those really advisors or accountability partners, right? People that are pushing you and you're pushing to do the same. But again, let the listeners know how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn. My first name is Dan, last name Lewkowicz, Lewkowicz. Again, Lewkowicz. You can reach out to me there, send me a connection request, DM, whatever you want. I'm happy to provide value. You can also Google my name. I've been on hundreds of podcasts, so a lot of stuff to listen to there. And then happy to give out my personal cell phone if anybody wants extra eyes on a deal. If you have commercial property and you want to know what it's worth, if there's anything you want to discuss, I am happy to be here and be a resource. My direct phone number is 248-943-2838. Again, 248-943-2838. It'd be my pleasure to be in touch and provide value in any way I can.
Thank you for being with us again today. I hope that you have learned a lot from the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you're telling your friends about the Real Estate Syndication Show and how they can also build wealth in real estate. You can also go to lifebridgecapital.com and start investing today.